Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya. Well, there's a few things I want to look at today. There's not enough time in the day to look at everything. But there's a couple of things specifically. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Chant a little bit here. Get in the groove. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya. So it's an interesting development is taking place that one of Prabhupada's senior devotees, a woman devotee, female, who has an impeccable record of service over the last 50 years or whatever, and who's been in a position of management for at least 30 and done what seems to be an excellent job of managing the temple in Tucson, Arizona, has the support of some of the male disciples now to accept her own disciples. And one young woman in particular is a very intelligent person, professional person, has evidently made great efforts to have this accepted by the wider society, the international society, Prabhupada's international society and the governing body, commission. And this has been going on, this kind of pressure to let Prabhupada's women disciples who are qualified to officially initiate Diksha initiation. It's been going on for ever since Prabhupada disappeared, and it's always been refused. And so they were discussing how in the West, the traditional values that are easily accepted in the East, like India, are just not accepted in this culture. People just don't live like that. And Hridayananda Maharaj also has been trying to see how to involve the Westerners more in Krishna consciousness according to time, place, and circumstance, according to the culture. And not a whole lot has been happening in the West, especially America, without gender equality. This is the big issue, that the people here, the young people especially, are just not interested in a culture that there's no, the women appear to be simply barefoot in the kitchen all the time. And they can't take part in decision making and managing and like this. It's just in the West, especially America, it's kind of like that. It's wide open and kind of wild. And so these people, they're not attracted. It looks to them archaic, old-fashioned. It's not something that appeals to them, or something that they can use in life in the world that they have to deal with. It just crunches gears. So some devotees have taken it that for preaching to, in the West especially, to kind of go in this direction of gender equality, let the women initiate who are qualified, and then later on deal with whatever situations may come up. Because ultimately the preferable social structure is that women are the mothers, they take care of the children, they take care of the house, they serve the husband, and they're under the shelter of the father. That's the preferable social structure. It's preferable. It really is. In a loving society where the fathers actually love their daughters, the husbands treat their wives like they're the queens of the house, in that sort of structure, it's preferable for the women. I mean, hey, you got it made. You don't have to go to work 9 to 5. You have your palace, So it's a preferable social structure. But to go from here, what goes on in the West, to there, it's a big leap. And so they're taking this step to try and help the people in the Western cultures make some advancement toward Krishna consciousness. It's a big step, very bold. So evidently on Sunday, the first initiation took place in Tucson. I have a friend who lives there. He goes to that temple sometimes. And I'm not surprised, that it would be Tucson. Hare Krishna. So I was looking at that and trying to understand it, and I think I understand what's going on there. And there are some dangers, that the whole thing could run away off, the whole thing could run off a cliff, and become a man-hating, we're better than they are hodgepodge. But under good guidance and with the appropriate women doing this service, it can serve its proper function, and women not doing this independently. The women that are doing these initiations will need the support and loving help and guidance from their godbrothers. And that's what we see going on. So, hey, Lance, hi, Hare Krishna. So that's what's going on with that. And Krishna consciousness is just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Guten Morgen. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare. So it'll be interesting to see what develops with that. I was just relating how the information is out now that the women, disciples of Prabhupada, are getting support for taking disciples. And I was saying how that's really important in the West, because the more traditional values, just people don't relate to them. They just don't. It's gender equality in the West. And it's been going on for over 100 years, gender equality. And we've got a woman vice president. And in Europe, there's a woman in charge of the International Bank. There's a woman prime minister in Germany. It's just, in the West, these traditional roles aren't attractive. So to get people into Krishna consciousness, you have to preach according to the culture. There's a danger to it, because Prabhupada was asked one time, one of his disciples said, Prabhupada, what can we do to, when we're on Sankirtan on the street, to involve the crowd more? How can we get them to engage, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada shifted the focus. Instead of the crowd, he shifted the focus to Krishna. And his answer was, your business is not to please a crowd. Your business is to please Krishna. If you please Krishna, then the crowd will automatically be pleased. So that's something to watch out for with wanting to preach, wanting to get people involved. And to be careful. The focus is to please Krishna, not to get a big following or to please a crowd. So that's one thing the devotees who are trying to do this have to be really careful of. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do with that. Sunday was the first initiation. Hare Krishna. And we're off to the races. Hope it doesn't turn into a battle of the sexes. Women are better than men, kind of gobbledygook. Got to get back at those men for all those years they kept us down, those horrible men. I hope it doesn't go there. Krishna. Because that's just the other side of the nonsense coin. Krishna. Ultimately, the traditional roles for women are the best. Ultimately. I mean, look at Raj Leela, okay? That's where we want to go. And what is the role of the ladies there? Daughter, girlfriend or wife, mother, sister, friend. Simple. As are the roles for the men. The role of the men is father, husband, lover, brother, friend. So we can keep it in that context in terms of these ladies initiating, then we'll get there. So have to be careful of the pitfalls of profit, adoration, and distinction, and power, and like I got a friend a job one time. I was working in a motel for a little while. I got a friend a job there too. She needed a job. So we both had name tags. For her, it was a badge. And she made those people that were trying to check into the motel, she made their life miserable. She was authoritative and bossy, and it's terrible. It was not at all the hostess with the mostess. You know, that's a hospitality industry. She was a hostility industry. She had her badge. She was official. It was a badge. I have authority. I have, yes, you may have a roll of toilet paper. No, you may not have a towel. To me, it was just a name tag. And all day long on my shift, I was apologizing to people for her rough and rude treatment. So we have to be careful, what happens when people have a certain amount of power, prestige. So we'll see how it plays out, and we pray for the best. We pray for the best for these devotees that are trying to do this, that they're protected by Krishna, and they have the actual spirit of devotion in their service. Because it'd be a wonderful thing. But there's a lot of backlash, especially from India. They say no. Women no, but they don't live here in this country. They're not familiar with the culture. So it'll be interesting, for sure. Probably be a lot of noise over it. A lot of barking. Like Prabhupada said, the caravan is passing by and the dogs are barking. Oh, we'll see. The other thing I wanted to look at was it's from the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's part 3, chapter 24, and it's Matsya, the Lord's fish incarnation. We went from the frog in the well, trying to get bigger and exploding, to the incarnation of the Lord in the well, and getting bigger and bigger and not exploding. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. The Matsya, the fish incarnation, it's in Judaism. There's the Noah's Ark, and then there's the Christian view of the old script, the Hebrew scripture of Noah's Ark. And then in the Quran, there's also a Noah's Ark. So it's a familiar theme in the different spiritual cultures, because the universe is manifest, comes into existence, and then is annihilated. This goes on periodically. And there's not just one universe, there are many universes. So sometimes the Lord will incarnate in a fish form. Why a fish form? Because he's well suited for traversing an ocean. to protect the devotees and the scriptures and like that. So the account of this form of the Lord, this giant fish form, is in chapter 24. And there's a nice little introduction, kind of summarizes what's in the verses in the chapter. And this is translated with commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Founderacharya in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This is a nice picture of Srila Prabhupada. Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Okay. He would stay up all night. He only slept a few hours, translating and researching and writing these books. And here's a nice little painting of the fish, Matsya, pulling the boat, the ark, with all the sacred items aboard through the waters of devastation, pulling them to safety. Okay. This chapter describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead's incarnation as a fish, and it also describes the saving of Maharaj Satyavrata from an inundation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself by Swamsa, personal expansion, and Vibhinamsa, his expansions as living entities. Swamsa, Vibhinamsa, two ways the Lord expands. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 8, Paritranaya sadhanam vinasaya cha dushkritam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appears on this planet for the protection of the sadhus or devotees and for the destruction of the miscreants or non-devotees. He especially descends to give protection to the cows, the brahmanas, the demigods, the devotees, and the Vedic system of religion. Prabhupada's going to explain here why the cows are so important. Yes, Krishna loves cows. Yes. But also, there's another reason. There's several reasons why cows are so important for civilized human life. He's going to explain one of them later. Thus he appears in various forms, sometimes as a fish, sometimes a boar, sometimes Nrsingadev, sometimes Vamanadev, and so on. He descends to give protection, and he appears in different forms to do that according to what's required. But in any form or incarnation, although he comes within the atmosphere of the material modes of nature, he is unaffected. This is a sign of his supreme controlling power. Although he comes within the material atmosphere, Maya cannot touch him. Therefore, no material qualities can be attributed to him in any degree. Once, at the end of the previous kalpa, actually, there are two accounts here of the Lord appearing, manifesting in the form of a fish, a giant fish. Yeah, twice. Why wouldn't he appear many, unlimited times as a fish, according to what's needed? But here, 2 times are described that he appeared in this form. He said, once, at the end of the previous kalpa, a demon named Hayagriva, There's an incarnation of the Lord named Hayagriva also, but this is a demon named Hayagriva. Wanted to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. That's interesting. If the entire universe is being annihilated, why would this demon want to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma? I mean, the whole thing's going to be annihilated. The demon and everybody, the whole thing. Perhaps he was thinking that would save him from annihilation. If he stole that Vedic knowledge, then he wouldn't be annihilated. Anyway, he tried to steal this knowledge from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the incarnation of a fish at the beginning of the period of Swayambhuva Manu and saved the Vedas from this demon. Now that's an old story, because that was in a previous manifestation, because the annihilation of the universe, that happened a whole nother universe manifestation. So how do we have that knowledge if everything was destroyed? That means someone who wasn't destroyed when the universe was destroyed is giving this information of what happened the last time there was a universe. Okay, on to the other manifestation of the fish form. The reason he appears as a fish form is because when the annihilation of a universe begins, it fills with water. I can't remember which comes first. If everything is burnt by the fire, Lord Shiva does his dance and everything is burnt and then dissolved in water, which would make sense, knowing how those elements work. If everything's wet, it's hard to get a fire going. So I have to study up on that a little bit. But two things happen. There's fire, and then everything's washed and cleaned. So he appears as a fish. I don't know if the fire already started or what. But anyway, there's water. I'll have to look it up. There's water, an inundation of water, like in the Noah's Ark story, a huge flood. So it was happening again. During the reign of Chakshusha Manu, there was a king named Satyavrata. So the first time it was Swayambhuva Manu, when Hayagriva tried to steal the Vedas. That was a whole other universe ago. Now, in this time, our universe, during the reign of Chakshusha Manu, there was a king named Satyavrata who was a great pious ruler. To him, to save him, the Lord appeared as a fish incarnation for a second time. King Satyavrata later became the son of the sun god and was known as Shraddhadev, or Vaivasvata Manu, whom Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. He was established as Manu by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first he was Satyavrata, and then later, in another birth, he became the son of the sun god. So that's what happens to pious kings. They're elevated to the heavenly planets, which means they take birth among the demigods. And that was King Satyavrata. He was a pious king. And in his next birth, he became the son of the sun god. and was in line of disciplic succession from Vivaswan, his father. Vivaswan, Ikshvaku to Vivaswan, Vivaswan to Vivaswata Manu, I think. I'm pretty sure. Hare Krishna. If I'm going to talk about these things, I have to know what I'm talking about. But we're trying to take a look at it. To receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, King Satyavrata engaged in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water. Gaur Haridas did that for I don't know how many days. He didn't eat anything. This was a few years ago. He just drank water for a month or something. I mean, it was a long time. So this King Satyavrata engaged in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water. And once, while performing this austerity on the bank of the Kritamala river and offering oblations of water with the palm of his hand, he found a small fish. Wow! Hare Krishna! Wow! The fish appealed to the king for protection, asking the king to keep him in a safe place. So king, they give protection to the praja. Praja means the citizens. And it's not just humans. I mean, they give protection to the animal. They see to their protection. Animals, the aquatics, everybody has to be engaged in their natural, according to life, doing their service and their duties. And so the little fish, he asked for protection. Although the king did not know that the small fish was the Supreme Personality of God himself, as a king he gave shelter to the fish and kept him in a water jug. The fish, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to show his potency to King Satyavrata, and thus he immediately expanded his body in such a way he could be no longer kept in a jug of water. The king then put the fish in a big well, but the well was also too small. Put the fish in a lake, but the lake was also unsuitable. Finally, the king put the fish in the sea, but even the sea could not accommodate him. So, to get into the details of how he could get, first of all, the fish out of a well, and second of all, it was too big for a well, and put him in a lake, and then he's too big for the lake, how did he transport him to the sea? Did they have cranes, or was it, a team of oxen or something? How did they get this giant fish out of the lake and into the sea? How did they do that? Well, the best I can do with it is mantra. I'm sure the details of the whole thing is accounted for somewhere, but they were able to do a lot with mantra. A lot. They had weapons, mantra weapons, that once it was released, would only go to the target, wouldn't hit anything else. They lit fires by mantra. They did all kinds of things by mantra. So that's the best I can do with that. But once they got him into the sea, even the sea could not accommodate him. Thus the king understood that the fish was no one else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he requested the Lord to describe his incarnation as a fish. Why have you appeared as a giant fish, O my Lord? Why? Why this form? The personality of Godhead, being pleased with the king, informed him that within a week there would be an inundation throughout the universe, and that the fish incarnation would protect the king, along with the rishis, herbs, seeds, and other living entities in a boat, Noah's Ark, which would be attached to the fish's horn. Now, Noah, he also got advanced warning, and he began building the ark. Here there's no mention of where the boat came from. The fish is the personality of Godhead himself. But there's no mention that King Satyavrata immediately got busy having his construction workers make a giant boat. There's no mention of that. So there are little differences in the accounts. This is a very brief account anyway. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. So King Satyavrata had advanced warning. King Satyavrata, the Lord disappeared. The fish incarnation disappeared. After that, all of that, he disappeared. King Satyavrata offered respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord and continued to meditate upon him. In due course of time, annihilation took place, and the king saw a boat coming near. Okay, so he didn't make a boat. The boat was coming, supplied by Krishna. After getting aboard with learned Brahmins and saintly persons, and seeds and herbs and other living entities, he offered prayers to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and thus he taught Maharaj Satyavrata and the saintly persons about Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and he taught Maharaj Satyavrata and saintly persons about Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. There's a purport in the Gita where Prabhupada talks about that. I don't know if I can find it. I'll try to paraphrase the purport. It's to those who are I think it's to those who are constantly devoted to me and worship me with love. Maybe I can find it real quick. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And Prabhupada expands on that in the purport. I think that's the verse. And I think it's 10:10. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Rather, nutshells verses 10:10. Okay, yeah, 10:10 is to those who are constantly devoted and worshiping with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. But that's not the purport I was looking for. I'll try one more time to find that purport. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, couldn't find it. Someday I'll find it. Okay, so the gist of it is that, first of all, to have a spiritual master is essential, and to hear from them. And then Krishna makes the arrangements and get to hear from different devotees who act in different ways to help each other. But if that's not available, and if a spiritual community is not available, and if the scriptures aren't available, if nothing's available, it's a purport. I wish I could find it. Prabhupada says, then the Lord within the heart will guide the sincere devotee. So we see that, again, that theme also here. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and he taught Maharaj Satyavrata in the saintly persons about Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. King Satyavrata took his next birth as Vaivasvata Manu, who is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Vivasvan Manave Praha. The sun god spoke the science of Bhagavad Gita to his son Manu. Because of being the son of Vivasvan, this Manu is known as Vaivasvata Manu. So, Ikshvaku. Yeah, okay. Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's what happens to pious kings. They get to go to the heavenly planets. They go to take birth among the demigods. So that's what happened to Maharaj Satyavrata. After this thing happened with the inundation and the Matsya incarnation, the fish incarnation, and his service to the Supreme Lord, and he was a saintly king, he took birth on the heavenly planets. He took birth as the son of the sun god Vivasvan. And in that birth, he became part of the disciplic succession, hearing from his father, Vivasvan Manave Praha. The sun god spoke the science of Bhagavad Gita to his son Manu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Poop, 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 Krishna. And let's see if we can get through some verses in the chapter. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Shri Rajavacha Bhagavan Trota Michami Harirad Buddha Karmana Avatara Katam Madhyam Maya Matsya Vidambanam. Maharaj Parikshit said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is eternally situated in his transcendental position, yet he descends to this material world and manifests himself in various incarnations. His first incarnation was that of a fish. O most powerful Sukadev Goswami, I wish to hear from you the pastimes of that fish incarnation. This is a Vishnu form. Vishnu form. Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-powerful, yet he accepted the form of an uncommon fish. This is one of the 10 original incarnations of the Lord. Text 2. Eitanno Bhagavan Sarvan Yatavad Bhaktamahase Uttamasloka Charitam Sarvaloka Sukavalam. What was the purpose for which the Supreme Personality of God had accepted the abominable form of a fish, exactly as an ordinary living entity accepts different forms under the laws of karma? The form of a fish is certainly condemned and full of terrible pain. Oh my Lord, what was the purpose of this incarnation? Kindly explain this to us, for hearing about the pastimes of the Lord is auspicious for everyone. Prabhupada. Parikshit Maharaj's question to Sukadeva Goswami was based on this principle, stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 4:7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata adhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. The Lord appears in each incarnation to save the world from irreligious principles and especially to protect his devotees. Paritranaya sadhunam. Vamanadev, for example, appeared to save the devotee Bali Maharaj. He was a dwarf Brahmin. He was full grown, but he was miniature, a Brahmin dwarf. Like, we know what dwarfs are. Sometimes people are born stunted like that. So he appeared as a dwarf Brahmana and begged from Bali Maharaj, who was emperor of the world, I believe, just 3 steps of land. But Bali Maharaj's spiritual master Sukracharya said, "Oh, don't do it," because he recognized it was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Don't do it. He's going to take everything from you. It's 3 steps of land. But Bali Maharaj, he surrendered and he said, "Okay, 3 steps of land." And sure enough, Krishna in the form of Vamanadev, his first step broke through the top of the universe. The second step went down and took all the planets. And then he said, "Where should I put my 3rd step?" He said 3 steps. Bali Maharaj said, "Put on my head." Put on my head. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. The Lord appears in each incarnation to save the world from irreligious principles and especially to protect his devotees. Vamanadev, for example, appeared to save his devotee Bali Maharaj. Similarly, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepted the abominable form of a fish, he must have done so to favor some devotee. Parikshit Maharaj was eager to know about the devotee for whom the Supreme Lord accepted this form. So it's not just a why, it's a who. Why? Oh, to save the world. Yeah, but there's a who in there. There's always, the Lord comes to protect his devotee. Devotee, especially. Sri Sutta Uvacha, Iti Yukto Vishnu Ratena, Bhagavan Badarayanai, Uvacha Charitam Vishnur, Matsya Rupena Yat Kritam. So Sutta Goswami says, Sutta Goswami is speaking to an assembly of sages in the forest. And he's recounting what he heard Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit talk about on the bank of the Ganges. So, Sutta Goswami, now we're at in the forest with the sages. Sutta Goswami said, when Maharaj Parikshit thus inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, the most powerful saintly person began describing the pastimes of the Lord's incarnation as a fish. Sri Sukha Uvacha, Govi Prasura Sadhunam Chandasam Apicheshvara Raksham Icham Tanur Date Dharmasyartasya Chaivahi Sri Sukadev Goswami, now we're back on the Ganges. Sutta Goswami is saying that Sri Sukadev Goswami said. It's a conversation within a conversation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O king, for the sake of protecting the cows, Brahmins, demigods, devotees, the Vedic literature, religious principles, and the principles to fulfill the purpose of life, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts the forms of incarnations. Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead generally appears in various types of incarnations to give protection to the cows and brahmanas. Cows and brahmanas. The Lord is described as Gobramani Hitaya Cha. In other words, he is always eager to benefit the cows and the brahmanas. When Lord Krishna appeared, he purposefully became a cowherd boy and showed personally how to give protection to the cows and calves. Similarly, he showed respect to Sudama Vipra, a real Brahmin. From the Lord's personal activities, human society should learn how to give protection specifically to Brahmins and cows. Then the protection of religious principles, fulfillment of the aim of life, and protection of Vedic knowledge can be achieved. Without protection of cows, Brahminical culture cannot be maintained. Without protection of cows, cannot maintain Brahminical culture. And without Brahminical culture, the aim of life cannot be fulfilled. The Lord, therefore, you can see how all this cow slaughter that's going on is just playing havoc, because you can't have Brahminical culture without cows. Why? Milk, ghee for sacrificial fires, especially urine. The cow urine is the cow manure, everything about the cow, everything. The cow's hide or leather, after they pass away naturally, is for the sacred instruments, the mridanga. In the West now we have fiberglass mridangas. The actual mridanga, because they're unbreakable, the clay and leather mridanga is a little on the fragile side. We're kind of rough in the West, so we have unbreakable fiberglass mridangas. But Krishna, Prabhupada liked them. He said, yes, this is good, do this. I mean, this culture is so, this thing about all the opposition coming from the traditionalists in India for women initiating is, they don't understand what it's like in the West. I mean, just don't understand that, with all the animal slaughter, you can't even have Brahminical culture. Forget it. Until there's cow protection and real Brahmins, then the Brahmins, they have the mantras. They're qualified to chant the mantras. Without protection of cows, Brahminical culture cannot be maintained. Without Brahminical culture, the aim of life cannot be fulfilled. Hey, Jocelyn, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The Lord, therefore, is described as Gobramani Hachaya, because his incarnation is only for the protection of cows and brahmanas. It's interesting how Prabhupada makes the point here that Krishna personally appeared as a cowherd boy to show this, for cow protection. Unfortunately, because in Kali Yuga there is no protection of the cows and Brahminical culture, everything is in a precarious position. The Prabhupada also related that the reaction for all the cow slaughter are these wars. It's a karmic thing, a reaction, karmic reaction. If human society wants to be exalted, the leaders of society must follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, give protection to the cows, the brahmanas, and Brahminical culture. So that's instruction for the leaders of human society. The leaders of human society. Those people that are inclined to managing and being in charge of things. They need to take it seriously. Uchavacheshu bhuteshu charanvayur iveshvara no chavacha vambhajate nirgunatvad diyo gunani. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Like the air passing through different types of atmosphere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing sometimes as a human being and sometimes as a lower animal, is always transcendental. So the living entity also is sometimes appearing as a human being and sometimes appearing as a lower animal. The difference is he is always transcendental and the conditioned living entities are not. They identify with those forms. So they become very proud of being human beings. We think that, we're like as good as God, right? Just because we're a human being. Wrong. We're not human beings. I am not a human being. I may have that form for a little while. That's all. So we're learning how to become transcendental to these forms. And the human form is very advantageous for learning how to become transcendental to having whatever form. The human form is very advantageous because we can meditate and reflect and communicate and can hear. We have some facility for realizing the situation. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, the Lord also sometimes appears as a human being and sometimes as a lower animal. But he's transcendental. Because he is above the modes of material nature, he is unaffected by higher and lower forms. Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of the material nature. Maya Yakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Therefore, being the supreme controller of the laws of nature, the Lord cannot be under their influence. An example given in this regard is that although the wind blows from many places, the air is not affected by the quality of these places. Although the air sometimes carries the odor of a filthy place, the air has nothing to do with such a place. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead being all good, all auspicious, is never affected by the material qualities like an ordinary living entity. Actually, the Lord purifies wherever he goes. An example I've heard in that regard is like the sun evaporates water even from a filthy place. He takes the pure water out. So if there's a nasty cesspool or a puddle of urine or something, the Lord, because of his all pure, all good, all auspicious nature, he can extract the pure water out of even a filthy place. So he's never affected by material qualities like an ordinary living entity. Purusha prakriti sto hi bhukte prakriti jan gunan. Bhagavad Gita 13:31. When the living entity is in the material nature, that's us, the living entity, he is affected by its qualities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is not affected. Disrespectfully, one who does not know this considers the Supreme Personality of Godhead an ordinary living being. Avajananti Mamudha. Hey, Ananga, Hare Krishna. Param Bhavan Ajananta. Such a conclusion is reached by the unintelligent because they are unaware of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Okay, now we're going to, that was a lot of the setup here and a lot of the philosophical background. Now we're going to get the storyline. Okay, the curtain goes up. Here's the action. Asid atita kalpante, brahmo naimitiko laya, samudropa utastatra, loka pur adayon ripa. O King, Parikshit, at the end of the past millennium, at the end of Brahma's day, because Lord Brahma sleeps during the night, another annihilation took place, and the three worlds were covered by the water of the ocean. Oh, okay. That thing about Hayagriva, okay, that wasn't another universe. Okay, sorry about that. I'm just trying to understand this. Don't want to mislead anyone. I'm looking at it, I'm trying to understand it. Hare Krishna. It's explained here exactly what that was. O King Parikshit, at the end of the past millennium, Brahma's day. So, a millennium is Brahma's day. Because Lord Brahma sleeps during the night, an annihilation took place. And the three worlds were covered by the water of the ocean. So it wasn't the total devastation of the universe, it was just an annihilation when Lord Brahma goes to sleep. Try to understand that. Does he recreate everything all over again when he wakes up in the morning? Why do I ask these questions? Krishna! Oh, stop. Hare Krishna. I'm just an ant crawling across the page and I want to understand all these things. Anyway, it's fun, to try and understand, realize, relish Krishna in his different activities. Not just dancing with the gopis, but what he does in these other things. I mean, it's all Krishna, Okay, so he falls asleep and there's annihilation, and the three worlds are covered by the water of the ocean. Kali nagata nidrasya datur sisayos bali Mukato Nishritan Vedan Hayagrivo Tike Harat. At the end of Brahma's day, when Brahma felt sleepy and desired to lie down, the Vedas were emanating from his mouth, and the great demon named Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge. Has that ever happened? You know, like you're reading and then all of a sudden you're like, when you're still kind of reading, but you're, you know, as like Brahma. He felt a little sleepy and he just got ready to lie down, and the Vedas were emanating from his mouth. The great demon named Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge. You know, he had some personal motivation for doing that. He wanted to get something. Understanding the acts of the great demon Hayagriva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who was full of all opulences, assumed the form of a fish and saved the Vedas by killing the demon. I'd love to hear how a fish killed that demon. Did he whack him with his tail, or swallow him, or hit him with his fins? What did he do? How did he kill that demon? Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, because everything was inundated by water, to save the Vedas, it was necessary for the Lord to assume the form of a fish. Text 10. Tratra Raja Rishi Kaschin Namna Satya Vrato Mahan Narayana Paro Tapat Tapasa Salilasana. During the Chakshusha Manvantar, there was a great king named Satyavrata, who was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Satyavrata performed austerities by subsisting only on water. I'm going to stop there because now we're going on to a whole other story. Account. They're not stories. They're accounts. Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. So Noah's Ark is kind of like this this account. It's in all these different cultures. I'm over here on Wikipedia, and Noah's Ark is the vessel in the Genesis flood narrative through which God spares Noah, his family, and examples of all the world's animals from a world engulfing flood. The story in Genesis is repeated. It is repeated in variations in the Quran, where the ark appears as Safinat, Noah's boat. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Interesting, describing here because in the Hebrew Testament, Noah is given instructions how to construct this ark, the exact measurements, just like the exact measurements for the temple were given. It should be so many feet long, cubits long, high. The structure of it, where everything should be, was given in great detail. So also, the ark was, how to construct it was in great detail. Each deck has the same height as the temple in Jerusalem itself, a microcosmic model of the universe. and each is 3 times the area of the court of the tabernacle, suggesting the author saw both ark and tabernacle as serving for the preservation of human life. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, there's a little twist here. The causes for God, the God of God, sending the flood. See, now that's interesting. You know, in the Judeo-Christian, the God of gods, the God of gods, the God of, in other words, there's demigods. They're also gods. So it's acknowledged in the Judeo-Christian culture. They just don't go there. They don't discuss it. They don't have much information about it. But the God of gods, what does that mean? That means there are gods. There are demigods. God of gods. Hello? God of gods. Hello? Hare Krishna. So the cause for the God, God of God, sending the flood, differ in various stories. In the Hebrew account, it's God inflicting judgment on wicked humanity. Babylonians give no reason, and the flood appears to be the result of caprice. They use words I don't understand. Can't you just speak in English? Jeez, I gotta look everything up. Caprice. Unaccountable change of mood or behavior. Okay. Which would fit more with the Bhagavatam. It wasn't to inflict horrible punishment on everyone. But then again, when Krishna appears, he appears to what? Save the devotees and annihilate the demons. So, how does it all fit? In the Babylonian version, the flood is sent to reduce human overpopulation, limit humanity. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Well, certainly everything was destroyed when Lord Brahma fell asleep, and there was that demon, Hayagriva, who tried to steal the Vedic knowledge. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna does a lot of things all at once. As a matter of fact, he does everything all the time, all at once. Hare Krishna, he'll let us know what we need to know to do what we have to do. And that's about it. Krishna. I don't see that studying like this is speculation. I don't see that. I'm not speculating. I'm trying to understand. I think that's a little different. And not speculating is like dry speculation. There's no devotion. You just want to understand the truth. You're not interested in a loving relationship with the Lord. You don't even think that that's possible. You don't really care even. That's not what's going on here. This isn't like dry speculation. It's trying to find Krishna. I'm trying to hear and relish Krishna consciousness. But I don't claim to know everything. And I don't even understand half of what I'm reading, at least. I mean, it goes pretty far. So, I like doing this. I'd rather do this than anything else, really, to be honest with you. Do this and chant. That's about all I really want to do. All I really want to do is, baby, be friends with you. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol, Lance. Food for thought, you know, something to think about. And for me, it's like, this is spiritual survival, because, I mean, I'm around devotees all day who do not do this. They do not do this. They're just into power struggles and who's right and who's wrong, and old grudges and getting even and what's going to happen in the future. And oh my God, what happened in the past. They don't do this, you know, for the most part. And I have to survive, you know. This is survival. So you know what I'm talking about, yeah. Oh, Krishna, all right, another day, another chance to grow in the Lord and pray for opportunities and openings to witness. Hare Krishna.